If you are planning to track irrigations for your plantings, first you will need to add your water sources, the irrigation water sources, to your account. The water source adding to your account is very simple, but there are a few things which I want to explain in a little more detail. So to add a water source, let's go to water sources. And currently this account doesn't have any water source. To add one, let's click on this plus button at the lower right. And then we need to fill in the water source details here. So first let's select the company. It belongs to Deer Valley. Let's give it a name. So it's going to be DV-01. Then we need to select the water source type, which could be canal, filter station, reservoir, turnout. You would use the utility option if you don't want this water source to show up when you will be adding irrigation to your planting. But in this case, I'm going to select well. If this water source does belong to a water district from which you're purchasing irrigation water, you could select the water district here. You can also quickly add it. Next, if the water source does have a flow meter installed, here we need to specify the meter readout units. So the flow meter, what is it reading? Is it reading acre-feet, gallons, or 1,000-gallon units? The most common probably going to be acre-feet. And this meter integers field is the place where you can specify how many integers that flow meter will have. For example, it's very common that some mechanical flow meters which measure acre-feet will go up to 1,000 acre-feet, and then it will roll over. So the meter will go up to 999, and as soon as it will hit the full next acre-foot, it will roll over. So if that would be the case for this flow meter where it rolls over after 999, I would input a number 3 since there are 3 integers before decimal place. So I enter number 3. And the reason for that is if you have that information here, AgNote will detect the meter rollovers. But if the meter doesn't roll over, just leave this field blank. There are a few more information pieces you could say for this water source. If you click on this Show More button, that'll show more form fields where you could input, for example, engine type. Is it electrical? You could specify the make, the model, horsepower, serial number, meter, that could be electrical meter or gas meter, and when it was installed. I'll just select a few years ago. Again, this would be optional, but once the information is in there, just click Save, and the water source has been created. I'm going to speed up a little bit and add a few more water sources for the 2 farms I have in my account. So now I have 3 water sources in my account. A few more things I want to point out here. So for each water source, we can also attach a pump test. To add a pump test, just click on this Add Pump Test link. And in the form that opened up, I will need to enter what was the flow when it was tested. So in this case, it was 2,222. Efficiency was 66. It was tested early in a year, well, May 28. And if I would have the flow test file, I can attach it and upload it here. But since I don't, I'll just leave that blank and I'll click Add. And later, for example, after 1 year, if I would test this water source again, and if I have that flow test information, I could just enter that here again. And this will be like a table which will show me all the flow tests done for that water source. So and now let's add some irrigations to the plantings. So let's go to row crops, plantings. And how about we add a irrigation to this corn planting? To add irrigation, just click on this irrigation button. We'll need to select that source. Then we need to select the date when the irrigation was started. I'll just select the 4th, date and time. Just to record that irrigation has been started, this really all the information is needed. The water source and when it was started. And I could click Add. And if you notice, now the background for this button is a little bluish. That means that field is being irrigated currently. And when the irrigation is stopped, I can add the remaining information for that irrigation. So just click on that button, select the irrigation, And now let's select the end date, and I'll say it was finished 3 days later. Now, if I provide flowmeter information, AgNote will use that flowmeter information. But very often, the water source doesn't have a flowmeter. I could also specify if I know what was the flow, how many gallons per minute was it pumping when I was irrigating. I could input that here. And the last option, if I don't provide any of this information, AgNote will look to see if this water source has a flow test. And if it has any flow test, AgNote will use the flow information from the pump test, which was closest to this irrigation start date. So for example, if I leave all these fields blank and save, it's still going to calculate inches. So it used that flow test information. And let's do a few more examples. For example, let's add irrigation to this field. So I'm going to select this second DV02 water source. Irrigation started on 2nd, finished on 5th. And here I'm going to use the meter reading information. So it was 998 and this was 12. What I'm demonstrating here is the meter rollover detection. If I click add, it still calculated inches, but this time it recalculated the acre feet, where it took the 12 plus 2, which is the difference from this meter reading to 1000. And that would be a total of 14 acre feet that was applied. And before I conclude this video, I just want to show one more thing. So I'll close that window, go back to water sources. And also, just like flow tests or pump tests, we can also attach a water quality test to each water source. And here I can fill in the water source water quality test results and add. And similarly, like for the flow test, we can keep adding the water quality tests here if you have that information. But I'll leave that blank, and let's add one more irrigation. So that water quality test was added for DV01. Let's go to row crops, plantings, and let's add one more irrigation to this corn planting. So I'll click on Irrigations, New Irrigation, and if you remember that water quality test was for DV01, I'll select the start date, stop date, and I'm going to use the meter reading information, so 34 and 39, and click add or save. And now, since that water source does have a water quality test which has nitrogen information in it, this irrigation also calculated applied pounds of nitrogen for this irrigation event. And there you have it. That's how you would manage water sources in your account and add irrigations to your plantings. Thank you.